Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Stephanie. I handle all of the event marketing here at Internet Creations. If you don't know where you are, we are happy Valentine's Day first. This is a match made in heaven, bundling up for improved case metrics in Salesforce. So I'm going to introduce to you our speakers for today. We have Joe, our product manager here at Internet Creations, and Howard, director of product here at Internet Creations. They will be leading today's discussion. And then we're also really excited to welcome Garrett Cook from Lodge Manufacturing. You might recognize their cast iron pans that you cook with in your homes. Really amazing product, and we're really excited.
They sound like that.
They sound like that. Could really hurt somebody if it fell on your foot or something else.
As a self-defense tool.
But we recommend using them for cooking not
cooking
for hurting people.
We don't want to self-incriminate ourselves. We are recording here.
Yes. Just a real quick thank you. Housekeeping. So to ask questions, you can go into that little question box on the right of your GoToWebinar. We'll be answering questions all throughout the entire webinar, so feel free to ask away, and we'll make sure that you guys get heard. And our first question for you is, where are you calling from? So if in the little question box, just write to us where you're from. Our headquarters here are in Hamilton, New Jersey. It's right outside of the Princeton area. And we also have offices in Dallas, Texas. So where are you?
Well, I'm already seeing we've got Madison, Wisconsin, Chicago, Nashua, New Hampshire. Nashua, New Hampshire, Toronto. Friends from Portland, Oregon. Please go to Powell's Books on my behalf and spend ridiculous amounts of money. Denver. I always love seeing the people from all around the country. It's a nice way to remind us how many, where our customers are. Someone else in Hamilton, New Jersey. Hello. Concordville, PA. This is pretty great. I love seeing all these cities
all places
come in there. Well, you should get out more.
Yeah, probably.
Awesome. So we're going to get started now, and let me talk you through what we're going to do today in our agenda. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about some key support metrics. And these are things that if you're managing a support team or on a support team, you're always thinking about, how do I really make sure to manage to these metrics? Then we're going to do a little definition of what is one issue per case. It's a philosophy that we're going to talk about that really translates into making your metrics as good as possible. And then we'll dive into the problem, which is when you have multiple cases for a single issue. We're going to then talk to Garrett from Lodge Manufacturing about that multiple case issue and how they handle it at Lodge Manufacturing and how those KPIs translate. And then we'll go to our second problem, when you have multiple issues inside of a single case and what you have to do to work through that. So without much further ado, we're going to get started. And let's start by talking about what are these key support metrics. So I like to think about it in a couple of different categories. And the very first category is really capacity. So when you have metrics that are around, call it the quantity of cases or the number of open or closed cases by a support agent, sort of representing their load, those kinds of capacity types of metrics really help the decisions around, like if you're looking at the number of cases for a particular product, that capacity issue tells me I have a lot of cases for one product versus another. It also tells you how you do people in hiring. Are certain people able to handle a number of cases and things like that?
Right, and I find this really important because it's helpful to find a nice balance of how many cases can each individual agent handle, and then kind of base your staffing and allocation of resources based upon that.
Perfect. The second one for me, and Joe knows this about me, responsiveness is super crucial in how we try to run things here. It isn't always initial response time, but a lot of orgs, they really key in on that. When a new case is open, how quickly do we respond to that customer? And so being able to track that, if you have a ton of duplicate cases, then you're going to be chasing lots of initial response times that are really for duplicate cases, as opposed to recognizing that, like, well, no, we've already responded to them. That's a duplicate. We don't have to worry about, tracking that response, just finding it and merging it in with the duplicate. Also, time with agent versus time with customer. Joe, talk to me about this one.
Yeah, this is super important, Howard. And one thing we often notice is that sometimes the agent will be really fast to respond, and then it will take a little more time for the customer to get back to us. Well, in that instance, what we want to do is make sure we have really good follow-up processes in play, because we'll be able to follow up with customers and hopefully get their responses back on the cases faster. Cases get closed out faster. Customers are happy, and everything's good there.
And another thing on this is that, and a lot of organizations track the total length of time from open to close. So this is something where if you've got, tons of duplicates, that length of time might seem like it's going super duper fast because you're like, oh, it's a duplicate, I can close this fast. So your averages might not be accurate. But also, if you have many issues in the same case, then you're going to mess it up because there's going to be an abnormal length of time there. The third bucket is really the effectiveness of work. So consider your time entries on the case where you're saying, look, I spent an hour helping this customer, and it took me 20 minutes to start working with them and then an hour to work with them. You're just looking at the time that they spend on it. Also, the efficiency of the agent. If they're spending lots of time on particular products, but not as much time on others because they might have a skill that they're missing or something like that. Joe, talk to me a little bit about that first response resolution.
Sure. It's really important that if you get a case and you're able to respond to the customer and solve it in the one shot, that's recognized. Also, you want to separate that from when you get a duplicate case and then you just close it out and it looks like you had a first response resolution when really nothing actually happened.
Got it. And the last piece there is account burden. And Joe, you and I always talk about this when we're working with our customers. Sometimes we'll notice that a particular account is getting lots of cases because they're having a lot of different issues. But if there's duplicates, we might not really represent the true issue that's there.
And it's really a good opportunity for us in support to recognize this and get ahead on it, saying, hey, it looks like this customer might be struggling a little bit. Let's get them on the phone. Let's talk to them, learn more about their use case, and kind of hopefully speed up the resolution to their problems.
Absolutely. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to talk about what one issue per case really means. So the first thing I want to say is one issue per case is about a single issue is represented by a single case that contains all the stuff like your notes and your time entries or related records. And that's going to move the issue from open to closed. So the second piece there is if there are multiple cases for the same issue, those cases should be merged into a master case that represents the resolution of that single issue. And final piece of that definition is if there's multiple issues in the same case, those issues should be split into separate cases to represent the effort for each issue separately.
Right.
So again, these pieces together, they give you that definition about, I want one issue to represent, or one case to represent one issue. No more, no less.
Exactly.
So now think about your support agents who are trying to show that they're really awesome. So let's talk about capacity again. When you have duplicate cases, that totally misrepresents the agent load. Again, if they have a lot of duplicates and they're picking them up and closing them quickly, it might totally misrepresent what their capabilities truly are or where your need is. Again, if you're looking at multiple issues in the same case, the categorization of your issues gets totally off. I can't tell which products need what.
And that's a big problem, Howard, because what happens is if you try to handle multiple issues in the same case, eventually you're going to have to close that case out and fill out the fields and say, what was the reason behind this case? What was the product? And you might not be able to give an accurate answer because there are multiple things involved.
Absolutely. Second way, think about responsiveness. Your duplicates, they're artificially going to improve how fast you respond to cases because there's nothing to do. You just like, oh, I can pick this up, write a little quick comment that just says, resolve the cases with the customer on the phone, close, and it's going to look like their stats are better than they are.
Right.
Same issue with multiple issues in the same case. Your time from open to close gets really, really fat where it didn't need to be because there's just so much extra time.
And one important note on this is that you could have, the case could have potentially been resolved on the first response, but because there were other questions, all of a sudden the case continues to grow, and now you're looking at a case with 100 comments.
Exactly. And that then speaks to that third category of answers, which is the effectiveness of work. So if you're looking at that first response resolution, you're going to see it on duplicate cases like crazy. Oh, we were able to respond it in one interaction. Well, no, you weren't. It was a duplicate case. as opposed to the other side of the problem where the time needed to resolve it gets super duper fat because you were resolving 3 issues inside of 1 case, and they might have all been 3 first response resolutions, but it was 3 separate questions. So it looks like 1 case that's misrepresenting the overall categorization that all could have been 3 separate first response resolutions. So it's really something where your support agents, they're either going to, kind of game the system to get their bonuses. So that's like, hey, I close cases, I make more money. They're going to do stuff that's really counter to the metrics.
Mm-hmm. And Howard, right before we started this webinar, one thing me and you discussed was, if you're an organization that sends surveys when a case is closed, you might introduce a scenario where a customer gets a survey virtually about nothing because it was a duplicate case that there was no communication on. The customer is now confused. Well, why am I getting this survey? Nothing happened here.
Yeah, and even just the overall survey fatigue. If you send surveys on closed case and you're sending lots and lots of surveys because of these duplicates, well, all of a sudden you need to make sure that you're not destroying your own responsive rate because people are they're just ignoring all the surveys because they're just unrelated to what actually happened.
Right.
So let's talk about this problem, multiple cases for the same issue. And realistically, you have to consider why duplicates happen. And I've broken it down here into a couple different things. The first one is your inbound email processing. So Salesforce, we all know it and love it. We know that when you send an email into Salesforce, and if you've got email to case turned on, or if you're using email to case premium, email coming into Salesforce is going to make a case. And if there's different things set up in the way the email is addressed, you might get duplicates. Joe, what's that like?
Yeah, I think of one scenario right off the bat, Howard, and that is, let's say I'm a customer and I email into support and I CC a few of my colleagues. So I might get an auto response email saying, hey, Joe, a case was created for you, but my colleagues didn't. And they're just going to respond to the email thread. And all of a sudden, I have duplicate cases in Salesforce.
And that's something where now you're trying to organize these things. And from a customer standpoint, they're going to get all of these different autoresponders to different people. So, one person's going to think it's case 1, 2, 3, 4. The second person's going to think it's case 1, 2, 4, 5, so on and so forth. And they're all those responses are trapped in 3 or 4 or 5 different cases.
Right.
The second piece of this, it's actually what I love about this little graphic over here. It's when you have the automatic case creation by channels. So for example, when someone emails in, we know that that's going to create a case, but also you have a phone system that when a phone call comes into support, it creates a case. And that's something that a lot of people set up. Same thing with like a web form or a chat window. And imagine that, a simple issue, which we have over here, hey, they called about an issue. They then emailed back, but haven't heard yet. So they're getting on the live chat on the web. That's pretty normal. That's like, I see myself doing that all the time. Right there, we've got 3 cases and it's 1 issue. And
that kind of leads into channel thrashing, which is, hey, I need immediate support and I'm going to just open up cases via email, phone, chat, web, any of the available resources that I can get into contact with somebody and hopefully resolve my issue faster, I'm going to do.
I have to tell you, I channel thrash late at night because I know that support's not going to answer right away because I know that they're closed. So I'm just like, I want to make sure that tomorrow morning someone's going to get to me, that they're going to see me like crazy. So I know the problem and I exploit it for my own benefit. Mm-hmm. But now I think about my own team when someone channel thrashes and they send an email and go onto the community and create a case, right, and then maybe call our call center after hours. And it's like, hang on a second. We're all the same team. We're going to get it. So we need to be able to pull all those duplicates together.
Right. And I think this is just a general human being behavior. Everybody's going to do this, not just,
If I am loud and frequent, they will get to me.
Exactly.
So the last category here, and this affects certain kinds of support teams. If you have anything where you've got some kind of monitoring system that's generating cases, you might get like an error message that creates a case in Salesforce. So you're monitoring some third-party system and it's generating these cases for you. It may be that the customer has one issue that needs to be resolved, but you're seeing the error message every hour or every 10 minutes or whatever the monitoring frequency is.
And we see this with a lot of customers who sell tech products. They have different systems and servers that are sending messages back to Salesforce when something goes wrong or something happens in the system.
Right. And realistically, that one issue, because it might be 5 different error messages, that should all be tracked inside of one case. It's one set of effort, one set of time, all in one place.
Right.
So now when I think about how do you catch these duplicates, it really breaks down into 2 different ways. The first way is when you have a support manager or someone that's acting as your triage that's assigning those cases out. So that person's going to see the case and go, oh, there might be a duplicate here. Let me resolve that duplicate before assigning it to someone. And that's a really clean way to do it, except that once you assign that initial case to someone, a new case comes in. If that support agent isn't noticing that there might be a duplicate, they might be on the phone with someone not realizing, oh, there's a duplicate here. Right. So that also really leads into that second method, which is if you're automatically assigning cases from a queue, then the agents are asked, find these duplicates, because the queue's not going to really know that there was a duplicate. It's just going to send them out, and you might have 3 people assigned to the same issue.
Right. Exactly.
So, and that's why I remind everyone, catch duplicates early. Like, you want your team to see that duplicate indicator to know. So when I think about seeing the duplicate indicator, what better way to do that than to show you this? So Joe, let's take us through a demo of Case Merge Premium.
Sure. Let me switch over to my developer org where I have Case Merge Premium installed, and I have a few cases to work with. So on my screen here, I'm looking at all of my cases that are currently flagged, meaning that actions required on me to handle those cases. So in my list view, I have 3 flagged cases. 2 are from our friend Daniel Todd, and the other is from a friend, Martin Rubino. So I can immediately tell that Daniel Todd has 2 cases open. They were open roughly around the same time, and they had the same subject line. So let's go ahead and open each one up to see what they're about. So I'm going to open this case, and I'm going to scroll down to the description of the case. So he says, "Hi, Neat Widgets team. I've had my Neat Widget for 2 years now, and I'm loving it. However, I started noticing an issue on startup today. I keep encountering an X25 widget failed to load error message. Can you help me in troubleshooting?" Okay, sounds reasonable. We've seen this error before, and we know how to handle it. And then I'm going to switch to the other case that he opened. And it is virtually the same thing. He added an attachment, but we're still seeing the same error being reported. So we know now that these are duplicate cases. In fact, Case Merge Premium is telling me that they're duplicate cases. So either on the top of the page on the detail side or via our Lightning component, we can go ahead and view the duplicates and proceed with merging them together.
All right, well, let's check out this duplicate. Let's see how this process rolls.
And Howard, as we suspected, those 2 cases in our queue were duplicates. So I'm going to go ahead and select the other one to be merged with the one we were just viewing. If I needed to search for additional duplicates, I can do so here by searching for Dan's name. I can search for different case numbers. I can go in here and look for criteria. I can also look at any recent cases that we've viewed. But I think these are the only 2 cases we have to merge here. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with clicking the merge button.
All right.
So now, Howard, I'm brought to a page where I'm able to select which case is going to be set as the master or parent case. By default, Case Merge Premium is going to set the older case as the parent because that's usually one that contains the most information.
It's also something that when you think about that stat of your total time to resolution, if you're looking at the beginning to the very end, you do want to have that initial case as your parent on that, so that you can capture that the initial case was opened at February 13th at 3:48 p.m. So even though there were subsequent duplicates, it really all tied back to the initial piece.
Exactly. So then I'm just before I merge, I'm going to check to see what objects I'm cloning. So I'm cloning any attachments, case comments, email messages, files, things like that. So I think we're ready to merge here. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the merge process.
Time for that merger Rooney.
Well, are you sure? Yes, I do. And then we're going to go back to the parent case. Great. So now I'm brought back to the parent case, and I can see that there's no duplicates. Additionally, Howard, one other thing to mention here, and this is a relatively new feature. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this case here. And for some reason, that did not... Oh, wait, maybe I refreshed the wrong case. Let's go back here. Yep, I refreshed the wrong case.
That's all right. But I think what we're seeing here is that on that we're seeing that parent-child relationship.
Exactly.
But I think we've got some new fields.
Exactly, Howard. And that's just about what I was just about to point out. So there's 2 new fields that come as part of Case Merge Premium now, and this is a very recent release. The 2 fields are called Merged By and Merged Date Time. So whenever viewing our child case, I can see who merged it and when. Previously, the child cases are just getting closed with the status of closed as duplicate, and you can report on it via that. But this is a nice clean cut way to just give a quick look at the case and say, okay, this was closed as a duplicate. Who did the merging?
That's awesome. Now, I know in the new version we've got these new fields. We have a new report, correct?
That is correct. Yep, these fields are included in a report, so you can kind of get a grouping of the merges performed by each individual user of Case Merge Premium.
Got it. And there's a quick question here, which I'll answer, which is this merging functionality out of the box, or is this part of the Internet Creations offering? This is Case Merge Premium. This is the Internet Creations product. Salesforce itself does not have a native merge functionality.
At least for cases.
At least for cases. So in order to merge cases, you have to create, what we're doing is we're creating that parent-child relationship, and we're also closing the other case out as duplicate. And the other advantage, and we'll talk about this in a second, is coaching. All of the subsequent replies to close as duplicate cases are reparented up to the master case so that everything stays organized.
And that's a great point, Howard, because if Dan responded on this case, the case we just closed, because he got an auto response email from us, that his new response is going to automatically roll right back up to the parent. And this case gets out of Dan's way, out of the case owner's way.
Awesome. All right. So thanks for the demo, Joe. Let's bring in Garrett from Lodge Manufacturing. Garrett, I'm going to make sure you're awake, so I'm going to do the sound of the pan. Are you there, Garrett?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you just woke me up. No, just kidding. That was great, and there was actually some information in there that was helpful for me to know as well. But yes, thank you for having me on today.
That's great. So Garrett's joining us. He is at Lodge Manufacturing, working with the support team, taking care of things, managing things, working with the team there. So Garrett, let me ask you a couple questions. When you have a busy season, and I know that busy season's probably around the holidays, but what's the approximate number of cases that are created in a good busy month for you?
Yes, that's a great question. So our three main busy months are November, December, and January. And in each of those months, we can have anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000, possibly a little bit more cases created.
Got it. So when I think about it, and you and I talked before, but what we talked about was that the team at Lodge Manufacturing, you support different channels. You support your direct consumers. So like when I have a pan and I'm like, hey, how do I season this, or I dropped it on my foot, where's the nearest emergency room? You're also supporting retailers as well as your outside sales representatives. Can you talk about how cases get created for your support team from all those different types of channels that you're selling through?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a number of different ways that someone might, reach out to us, whether it's an individual consumer using their pan at home, it's a dealer who's selling our products, one of our outside sales reps, and even sometimes it's internal, someone from a different department that emails us needing something. So the main ways that those cases kind of come in and are created are via a web form on the Lodge website, kind of like a contact us form, through emails, phone calls, mail. So if someone sends us a letter with photos, stuff like that, faxes, and then also we'll get the occasional walk-in where someone will actually walk into the office with their skillet and want to have questions and stuff like that. So those are really the main ways that people kind of reach out to us with questions, and those cases are created.
And I know there isn't a front door to case feature in Salesforce yet, but I love hearing that. Look, you serve the community, and they've got your product, and so they even do walk in or send mail and things like that. I think of us in a I'll call it the technical world, where we never, no one walks in our front door and says, help, we're having a Case Merge Premium problem. They could, but we have a customer who's actually directly above us in our building, so they could come downstairs and say, we're suffering from Case Merge Premium, lack of merging or something like that. But I love the fact that you get the opportunity to actually be with your customers and actually see them in person, and it's not just through email and phone and chat and things like that. So that's awesome. So when I think about that support process where duplicates could show up as simple as someone walks in the front door, you're creating a case for them, they may have filled out a web form. So now you've got a duplicate. So in that support process, who do you ask? Who's responsible for merging cases?
Well, the way we do it is most of the cases that come in either through web or email, those automatically come into our customer care, case queue, essentially. And so what I generally do is I will go through and kind of sort out and decide, which cases need to be sent to which team member, kind of get all that spread out. And in doing so, I always try to keep an eye out for potential duplicates. As I'm looking at the case, I'll check to see if case merge, maybe catches another case that has the exact same subject. Or if it's something that I remember seeing, a case, a few emails ago that sounded really similar, I can go in and take a look and try to catch those. But, we also rely on our team members to try to catch a lot of those duplicates as well. If they're talking to someone on the phone, they create the case and then in doing so realize, hey, it looks like this person emailed us as well. They certainly have the ability to go in, merge those cases, and try to catch them also. So it's really a team effort.
That's awesome. So now that you've got that support process humming nicely, spotting the duplicates, what are some of the key metrics that you track for your support team? And then how do you use those metrics to really impact some business decisions for you?
So the main metrics we look at are actually a couple that y'all had kind of mentioned earlier. We definitely want to look at overall open caseload, see what everyone has, case age as far as when that case was created, the status of it, in relation, and then also, the number of cases that are closed and the time frame to do so. And that really helps us to, determine a lot of different things, such as, scheduling. When I'm assigning cases, it helps with, putting priority on certain types of cases or whom they might be assigned to. But, it also can, looking at those, factor into when we do team meetings, materials that's covered in those meetings and stuff like that. Not only do we use those metrics to kind of keep an eye of how the team is doing and everything, but we also, keep an eye out for certain trends, with different products, activities, if we're doing a promotion on something, how many questions about it, stuff like that is all looked at as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So the next thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at some coaching tips for when you're merging cases. So Joe, talk to me about this.
Sure. And thank you, Garrett. That was super helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up now with some coaching tips for Case Merge Premium. First and foremost, you want to go ahead and merge early. If you're someone who's instituted knowledge-centered service in your organization, one of their biggest philosophies is search early and search often. The same thing kind of applies here. You also want to remind agents that their customers can respond to any of the merged cases. So if a customer responds to a case which has been closed out as the duplicate, if they respond to that case, their response is going to be automatically rolled up to the parent case. And the last thing I have for coaching is it's not really a best practice to tie bonuses to closed case volume. And the reason being because doing so could result in behavior that doesn't really align with having integrity in your data in Salesforce.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where you might not adopt the use of case merge premium because you're trying to say, well, if I close these cases,
Right.
they're not identified as duplicates. I'm skipping that step. So by taking that out of a bonus structure, you're able to say, look, we love that you're able to handle this load, but that's not the true load. You're not using the tool. That's actually something that the new fields that we have on Case Merge Premium, it'll really allow you to see who is adopting the tool properly because duplicates happen.
Right.
So Garrett, one last question. Talk to me a little bit about your tip here for reports and dashboards.
Yes. So shortly after we started using Case Merge, we realized that there were a lot of cases that were being closed out very quickly. And, we were trying to figure out, okay, mainly it was a lot of my cases that were being closed out very quickly, to be honest. So, I went in to look and see. Exactly. And I wanted to see, all right, am I really closing this number of cases? Because this seems like a lot of them. And in that, we realized that a lot of those duplicated cases, when we merged them, it closed them as duplicates. So that closed case was showing up on a lot of my reports, dashboards, things like that. So we found it's always good to, be cognizant of that and, try to set up your reports and everything to take into account, those cases that are going to be closed as duplicate. You may just want to filter them out. Or, you could also do a report specifically for those to just see how many are coming in, what types of, channels that they're coming in through that you're commonly having to merge and stuff like that.
That's great. Thank you, Garrett. So the next thing I want to talk about, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to let Joe talk about it, which is really good ways when you're setting up case merge premium, the kinds of things that you can do to really help get the most out of the tool.
Right. So we talked a little bit about coaching tips for case merge. Now for some setup tips. So the first thing is you're going to want to customize your duplicate criteria for the best detection of duplicates in your org. The default criteria looks at cases, Howard, that are open with similar subject lines, but you can even take this a step further and factor in other attributes of the case, such as the account, contact, and other fields that are on the case object. And just remember that not all orgs, not all Salesforce orgs are going to have the same duplicate criteria. It's going to vary by how your organization works. Another tip here is to make sure you place the lightning component in a visible area, and we showed that in the demo. Typically, we recommend adding it towards the top of your lightning page layout, usually on the left or right side panel. Another item you're going to want to take care of is make sure you set up object cloning. On the Case Merge Premium Setup Wizard, we provide administrators with options as to what child objects they want to have cloned, such as emails, comments, files, etc. And we also provide the option to delete the original, and that helps on just getting rid of the original file if it's no longer needed and hopefully save on some storage there. And lastly, feel free to redirect closed duplicate cases to a bucket queue. Once cases have been closed out as a duplicate, there really isn't the need for the support agent to go view them again. So we recommend, if possible, just reassigning those closed duplicate cases out and moving them to like a queue or some other owner that isn't necessarily managing cases. Another side note I wanted to mention, and again, we mentioned this earlier during the demo, there are 2 new fields on the case object to help support managers understand who's merging cases and when. And again, those fields are merged by and the merge date time.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. So I also want to make sure before we move on to the next thing, I have another special thank you to Garrett Cook from Lodge Manufacturing. Garrett, thank you so much for helping us with this today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It was a pleasure being on here. And, it's a product that it's been really beneficial to us.
Excellent. All right. So the second problem, and this is the one that's like a little bit more nefarious as far as I'm concerned, is when you have multiple issues inside of a single case. So think about it this way. Separate issues, they're going to require different people to work or different support teams, different processes are involved, and these issues might be able to be worked at the same time, or they're so very different that they've got different support processes and are tracked differently in terms of priority and things like that. So you want to make sure that you're solving them that way. And you also want to make sure that that also then translates back up to your metrics. So if you are trying to solve the same issue or multiple issues inside of that same case, your case volume, as we talked about earlier, is going to be off. Your response times and total time to close will also be off. And your first response resolutions, again, they'll be all over the place. You won't be able to tell. So I think about it this way. This really shows up because a support agent is just trying to help the customer with the, oh, by the way, I have one more question about this.
And that's right, Howard. There's no real negative intent behind it. It's just something that we as human beings we want to provide people with help when they ask for it.
And I think when you think about the intent here and you think about that good-natured support agent, teaching them that splitting the case off so that it can be handled by the right people and then it can make their metrics true, it's in their best interest.
Right.
So what I want to do is I actually want to go forward and I want to take a look at what you can do with case split. So you can really look at that existing case and get those issues into 2 separate places. Right. So Joe, can you grace us with another brilliant demo?
Oh, I would be happy to. So let me switch over. And Howard, before I go into demo, just to kind of make another point to what you mentioned, I mean, sometimes what will happen is you're trying to solve for a second or third issue, which you're not the best person to handle it. Yeah. So it's like now you're spending even more time trying to learn something that you're maybe not responsible for, or something that you just don't know about. So I'm actually going to close out of some of these cases here, which no longer apply. And I'm going to go to this case. This was the 3rd case in my queue. And again, the case is flagged, meaning the ball is in my court to respond. So on this case was opened from Martin Rubino from Commercial Tech LLC. Now let's see what Martin has to say. Hi, Neat Widgets team. All of a sudden, I noticed a red light flashing in the top right corner of my widget. I tried logging into your community to search for help articles. My login wasn't working. Can you help explain the flashing light issue and also help me resolve the login issue? Well, I'm reading this, Howard, and I noticed there's 2 separate things. First is the issue with this product, and second is the issue with the community login.
Absolutely.
So right away I know, okay, I am the product person. I can fix the flashing light issue. I can get Martin what he needs. But I don't really know about the community. I'm not sure what needs to happen there.
I'll do the community
Right.
issue. So let's organize that.
Right.
Let's get this case split out.
So towards the top of the case, we have a nice split button. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what you'll notice right away is that case split presents you with a side-by-side mode of your cases. The left side is what the original case contains, and the right side is what your new case will contain. So let's go ahead and get this in order, Howard. So since he's reporting the red flashing light issue on the original case, I'll go ahead and make the second case regarding the community login. So I'll go ahead and just type that in, community login issue.
It's always good to type on webinars. It always makes everyone nervous.
Well, my typing's a little loud too, so hopefully that wasn't heard too.
It's legendary as loud as it is.
So Howard, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the part of the description out into the new case, and I'm going to check the case reason, set that with the customer community portal reason, and we'll go down to the bottom here. So I've set the top up how I want. All the fields are in order, and now I have the option if I need to drag and drop any comments to the new case. I can just do a quick drag and drop. Additionally, the same thing for emails, files. Anything I need to move over to the new case, I can do. In this particular instance, I'm not going to drag and drop too much just because I have most of the content I need for the first case, and the second case is just a community login issue. So I think we're ready to actually go ahead and split this off.
But one of the things I think is really cool right here is the original case that you're working on, you could actually edit all of your fields right now.
Right. So
you're kind of getting yourself ready to keep working the new case or the old case. So like you could assign this one.
And Howard, you're right. One thing I missed here is that, I'm splitting the case off so that I'm not the owner anymore.
Yeah.
So I want to go ahead and just change the owner. Let's make it our friendly API user.
Oh, API user, please help them with the login issue.
Right. So I'll go ahead and split this off. And boom, I brought the new case that I've created, and now it's owned by API user. So API user probably just got a notification about this saying, hey, you have a new case, and it's about a community login issue. So now API user is going to be the one to pick this up and respond. And so we already have a nice pre-written canned comment for community login issues. An API user will respond saying, hey, sorry about this. Sometimes the community is a little funky. Let me send you over a password reset email, and he'll send that away.
Awesome. So I think one of the things that we can take from this demo is it isn't difficult to split the case out. It's just a way of keeping yourself organized, getting things to the right team. And it's really easy to just drag and drop the different pieces of the case, copy the information, update case fields, really get yourself organized for that productivity, not sticking yourself inside of one case where you try to solve everything.
And one of the fun things I think about this is I've just taken myself out of the equation. I can resolve the product issue, but the community login issue isn't my specialty. So I'm giving that to somebody else. So
absolutely.
Creates
Anytime
a little fun
you can
there.
delegate, it's a good time. Awesome. So Joe, talk to me about some of the tips you have for splitting cases, for teaching people to get to there.
Sure. So Howard, first, you're going to want to remind agents that if they don't split issues off into new separate cases, their list of comments and emails on the original case is going to grow to an unmanageable level. Before you know it, they're going to be looking at 100+ comments on the case, and they're going to get lost in what they're actually addressing. Additionally, every time an agent is presented with a new issue or question, they should be asking themselves, am I the right person to address this issue? On that last case we just demoed, I knew I was not the right person. So if you're not the right person, you should be splitting and reassigning that new case to the proper owner. We showed an example. Another great example is like if we get pricing questions. So I know an account executive is going to be better to answer that pricing question than I am because they're more well versed in that area. Next, you're going to want to make sure that agents don't undermine their own performance metrics. So if they decide not to split, their cases have the potential to stay open significantly longer, and this may falsely indicate that agents are taking a long time to resolve customer issues. If you receive a new question on an existing case, split it. This is something that happens all the time in support. With this, it may be good to create some guidelines for your agents to when is this new question no longer related to the original case? And if it meets certain criteria, then go ahead and split it. And lastly, for coaching, be sure your agents are updating fields when splitting. as we demoed before, Case Split provides end users with the option to set fields on both the original case and the new case. So they can go ahead and do that and get both cases in order before they proceed with splitting.
Got it. So Joe, do you have a couple of tips in terms of like what are the best ways you want to set up Case Split?
Sure do, Howard. So as far as setup tips for splitting, you're going to want to make sure you place the split button in the visible area. In my demo, we showed on the top right of the screen across the page. You also want to ensure that you're teaching agents what Case Split does, the actual value of it, and ensuring that they know that splitting cases is ultimately going to save them time and frustration. Because again, Howard, if they're looking at a case with 100 plus comments, they're going to get lost and they're not going to know what they need to respond to next. And lastly, you're going to want to make sure that you have the proper fields displayed on the Case Split page. So as you saw before, I had the owner field, the reason field, a few other fields. You're going to want to make sure that all of those fields that are high touch fields that agents are normally working with are all on that page. And again, they can update both the original and the new case when they're doing so.
Got it. So at this point, I want to make sure I'll call this the shameless marketing part of our webinar. We are currently bundling Case Merge and Case Split, and it gets you as 25% savings. And what I want to encourage you to do is to reach out to one of our account executives. They'll help you with a demo. They'll talk about pricing for you. Make sure that you really understand the best way to kind of put these things together. We do have a number of questions, which we're going to get to in just a second. So I'll do a couple last things first. If you are in the Atlanta area or you're going to be at Southeast Dreaming at the end of March, I'll be doing a talk called KCSs for Closers. It's all about knowledge-centered service and how you can use those principles to improve case deflection metrics and satisfaction and self-service and things like that, reducing the cost of support. Also, same time, different channel is Snowforce, which is out in Utah. Brendan Morphy, one of our account executives, is going to be speaking with Kathleen Lookman from Maryville University, and they're going to be talking all about increasing efficiency and productivity and happiness with case management in Service Cloud, talking about some of our products and such there. So we do have a number of questions. Keep using the questions panel, but we're going to roll right through these. And the first question that I have is, are cases related in any way when you split them so that you know where the split case was originated from?
Great question. So the answer to that is yes. And there's two ways to identify where the case was split from. Number one, Case Split has the option to insert a comment on the new case saying, hey, this was created from this other case. Second, the parent case, there's another option for the parent case field to get populated when you're splitting a case. So if you split something off into a new case, that new case has a parent case field, and that field says, case 001234 was the original.
Great. All right. Getting that answer into here for everyone. Second question.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Okay, Steph's doing
Got
it.
you guys.
Steph's got it.
Okay, so the second question is splitting a case the same as cloning a case?
No, not exactly, because cloning a case will not clone over child records. So if you want to split a case and clone over emails, comments, files, attachments, anything from the original case, that is not available through the standard clone option. Cloning a case in Salesforce using the standard clone button is just going to copy over the details.
Got it.
Great question, though.
All right, so the next question, does case splitting create multiple email responses back to the customer? Meaning if the customer has 3 separate issues in a single case, the case is split into 3 separate cases. Will the customer be managing conversations in multiple email threads?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge. They could be, yes, because there's 3 different thread IDs that are, when the customer responds to that specific thread ID, it's going back onto whatever case they're responding to.
And that's the kind of thing where when you're trying to think about these need to go to separate people to solve for, that's where it's like, well, of course you should have 3 separate conversations.
Right.
There's also a feature in Case Split, which is a split to existing.
Right.
So, and this is something that we didn't demonstrate here, but imagine that someone replies to the wrong case. You could actually say, oh, that comment should have went on to this other case. So you can then pick that comment, split it to an existing case, and kind of do that copy over.
Right. It has the split to existing has 2 purposes. One, if you really need to do that, and 2, if somebody accidentally responds to the wrong thread, you can just use split again and move that over as needed.
Got it. This other question: does case splitting create a second ticket number, or do they somehow relate back to the same ticket?
So there is there can be a relationship between the new case and the existing case, but they're each their own individual record. They both have their own number. So yeah.
Got it. All right. So that's our questions at this point. If you have more questions, we are still here. We'll keep answering them. But if you are if you're done listening to us, then what I want to do is say thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad that we were able to bring Garrett on to talk about lodge manufacturing and to answer all these great questions. So please reach out to us, see if you want to get a one-on-one demo of the products, and we'd love to help you with that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.